You're watching BBC One, now the 10 o'clock news with Dermot Murnaghan and Sally Challoner.
Iraq's Shiite majority win the biggest block of seats in the parliamentary elections. 5 weeks after the vote, the Sunni minority will have a stronger voice. How likely is a decrease in violence for the Iraqi people? With no party winning enough seats to govern, we'll be live in Baghdad with the latest on the prospects of forming a coalition. Also tonight, the internet giant Google squares up to the US government over its users' privacy. Whale watching on the River Thames, efforts to get a 7-ton bottlenose back to sea. And the England coach Sven-Göran Eriksson sues a Sunday newspaper over its fake shake article.
In the West, 5% of every council tax bill for the foreseeable future. What's the real cost of the Bath Spa? And 30 years after her first commercial flight, we take one of the test pilots down memory lane.
Good evening. 5 weeks after they voted, the people of Iraq have finally found out the results of their historic parliamentary elections. Parties representing Shia Muslims won most seats, but not enough to secure a majority. They will now negotiate with Sunni Muslim parties and Kurdish groups to form a coalition government. Many in Iraq are hoping the result will mark a turning point, which will see all sides working together to end the violence. Of the 275 seats in the new parliament, the Shia alliance won 128. The two main Sunni groups shared 55 seats and the Kurdish alliance won 53 seats. The rest went to minor parties. Our correspondent Alistair Leithhead is in Baghdad. Alistair.
Well, finally we have a better idea of what shape the Iraqi government, the new Iraqi government, will take. Candidates can complain, so it could be 2 weeks before we have the final certified results. But at least now the hard talking between the various political parties trying to forge a coalition can get underway. They voted for a new Iraq in December. Now the results are known, people are asking if anything is really going to change. Whether the suicide bombings, now part of daily life, will finally be halted. And closer to home, the question is whether British troops will be coming back any sooner. When the election commissioner announced the results, there were no surprises. The main alliance of Shia Muslim parties picked up twice as many seats as anyone else. They'll be pulling together the new government. Iraqi politics is pretty sectarian. People mainly voted by religion or ethnicity. It's the Kurdish parties the Shias will most likely work with to get their majority in parliament. As results came out, more bombs went off, but it wasn't a particularly violent day for Iraq. Sunnis are blamed for the insurgency, and with Sunni parties winning many more seats in the last election, it's hoped their new role in politics might help diffuse the insurgency. They're still not happy with the results and may complain, but will compromise.
There's no reason prevent that we deal with Shia on condition they accept our conditions and we negotiate to reach sort of compromise to the situation.
But the head of the Shia alliance is not in a charitable mood.
This is a democracy. There are winners and there are losers. Those who win form a government, those who lose forge the opposition. This is all part of the democratic process all over the world.
Well, the results are pretty much what people here in Iraq were expecting. I've come to this wedding, which is a mixture of Shia, Sunni and Kurdish people. See what they think about the results.
We do not have a democracy right now, but we wish to have it. So the election is the first step. Maybe it's not the success step, but it's the first step.
We need to give them the time. You know, it's not easy to switch from what we were till now. A lot of change happened, so we should give them a time, you know. The sooner the stability, the sooner the British forces can pull out of Iraq. The British ambassador said today a government of national unity would bring that one step closer. Their people voted for them,
Now it's up to the politicians to form a government and get to work.
So, Alistair, it's now up to the Shia parties to show willingness to cooperate with the other parties.
That's right, and of course the Shia now are the main political bloc. They could join in a coalition with the Kurdish alliance and quite easily, with another party, get the 2/3 majority in parliament they need to get their man in the presidential suite. But they will be coming under a lot of pressure from the Americans and the British here for them to try and bring in the main Sunni party and form a government of national unity. Now that's their decision. They have to make that process. They have to move forward to do that. And that is seen as being the best way of bringing the violence and the insurgency up to an end. The people have brought these people in. Now it's up to the politicians to come up with the goods and get on with the work.
Alistair Heath in Baghdad, thank you. And the Foreign Office has confirmed tonight that a British man has been killed by a roadside bomb in Iraq. Stephen Enright, who was 29 and from Devon, was working as a private security contractor. Earlier, the Defence Secretary John Reid revealed that around 230 British soldiers have been wounded in Iraq since the invasion in 2003. 98 have been killed. The internet search engine Google is taking on the US government in a row over the privacy of its users. Google has been ordered to hand over details of what people are searching for on its website. The American Justice Department says it wants the information to help it crack down on internet pornography, but Google is refusing to comply. From New York, Gitta Hari reports.
Google is the biggest search engine in the world. We use it to check out 26 billion web pages a month. Do no evil is a stated objective for the young men behind the company. But not everyone uses the web for innocent ends. And Google knows exactly what we're all looking for.
Like most internet companies, we do have records of what types of activities have been done on our site, and we are subject to legal standards.
The US Justice Department has asked Google for 2 long lists, a record of a week's search queries and a random list of 1 million websites which can be accessed through its search engine. Many of those are pornographic, and the government wants to know if children are adequately protected. Some campaigners are surprised that Google has refused to help.
People ought to at least question whether Google is being sincere in this, in that 3 of its large competitors, Yahoo, American Online, and Microsoft, which aren't any small-time potatoes, have all complied with the subpoenas. Why is it that Google is having such a problem?
Google has not been asked to tell the authorities who is using its site, but it wants to avoid any perception that it's willing to reveal information about its clients at a time when there's widespread concern that the government is asking too much.
Not only are we being spied upon without our knowledge, but now the federal government is trying to get more power to do it even with our knowledge and with the consent of American companies that have grown because we live in a free and democratic society.
The markets are watching anxiously. Shares in Google fell 9% today. Google was first asked to hand over information to the government last summer. At the time, it described the request as too broad, too burdensome, too vague, and as one that was intended to harass. Now, a difficult battle over where the line should be drawn between the privacy and the protection of the public looks set to be argued out in court. Gitta Hari, BBC News, New York.
Fears are growing for the safety of 4 foreign oil workers being held hostage in Nigeria. The 4 men, a Briton, an American, a Bulgarian and a Honduran, were seized by a militant group last week from an offshore oil field operated by Shell. The kidnappers are demanding $1.5 billion from Shell in compensation for pollution in the Niger Delta. Anita McVeigh reports.
It's 9 days now since Nigel Watson-Clark and 3 colleagues were abducted from an oil platform in southern Nigeria by a group calling itself the Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta. Mr. Watson-Clark from Saltford near Bath and the other men, an American, a Bulgarian and a Honduran, were guarding rigs owned by Shell. In a phone call, all 4 said the conditions they're being held in are getting worse.
We're on a lot of pressure here, and things aren't too good. We're being asked to call you and to ask for the assistance of our respective governments, put pressure to speak to the President of Nigeria.
The captors' demands include local control of oil wealth and the release of 3 prisoners, among them a leader of the Ajo tribe who's facing treason charges. On Sunday, militants attacked one of Shell's facilities, killing 17 people. This, the kidnappings and sustained sabotage of pipelines, means Shell is considering its future in the region. Attacks in Nigeria have already cut the OPEC members' exports of crude oil by 10%. Tonight, though, the main concern is for the hostages. The kidnappers say the American Patrick Landy is gravely ill and have threatened that if he dies, they will kill the other men. Anita McVeigh, BBC News.
Here, the Education Secretary, Ruth Kelly, insists she can win over Labour MPs opposed to the party's school reforms in England, despite criticism from the former Labour leader, Lord Kinnock. He said trust schools with more say over admissions could shatter the education system. But Ms Kelly insisted today there was no question of schools selecting by ability. She's promised more talks with Labour backbenchers. Efforts are underway tonight to save a 7-ton whale which earlier today made its way up the River Thames to central London. Experts think the northern bottlenose whale, usually found in deep sea waters, could be injured and disorientated. Daniel Bircher is on the Thames tonight. Daniel.
Dermot, for several hours this evening, the whale disappeared from view altogether. There has since been a sighting at Greenwich, several miles downstream here. That hasn't been confirmed, but if it is true, it suggests that the whale is now at last moving in the right direction at the end of a day on which its prospects often appeared bleak.
Lost and alone, a long way from its usual waters, a northern bottlenose whale makes its way up the Thames through London. Usually a strong swimmer, this species is used to deep water much further north, not a tidal river like this.
We've never seen an animal like this before. Our records at the museum go back to 1913, and this is the first record of this species in the Thames.
Oh, there's one there!
An unusual and unexpected sight. All day a steady stream of onlookers by the bank. Most have never seen a whale of any sort, and certainly not here.
Basically, we were just looking at the river and suddenly it comes out, squirts out water.
He was getting very hungry, and so his outlook is not all that good. That's what's worrying.
Excitement tempered by concern for the welfare of this mammal, swimming further into trouble.
At the moment the whale is surfacing in fact you can just see it over there now. It's in the middle of the river and throughout the day it's been moving steadily upstream. That's raised concerns it might get beached along the shoreline. It's also getting increasingly disorientated and stressed.
And it did beach itself during the afternoon, the rising water lifting it back off the shore. But with nightfall came a changing tide. Rescuers lost sight of the whale.
We're hoping that with an outgoing tide, which it is at the moment, the tide's dropping, we're hoping that it's realised which way the water's flowing and it's gone back out to sea.
Definitely spotted in Greenwich at the moment.
Right, it's a definite sighting of the whale in Greenwich.
But then news of a new sighting at Greenwich, the whale at last moving back downstream, closer to the open sea.
Some conservation groups are now saying this whale needs to be left in peace. There has been criticism throughout the day about the amount of attention focused on it. Indeed, we in the media were asked to move further back this afternoon so as not to add to its distress. There are still questions about what happens if it does make it to the open sea, and that's by no means certain at the moment. Will it then still be fit and healthy enough to carry on its journey? Dermot.
OK, Daniel, thank you. And digital viewers can see more pictures of the London whale by pressing their red button and selecting News Multiscreen. Still to come on tonight's programme, rising temperatures and the delicate sea life of the South Pole. A special report on the effects of global warming in the Antarctic. A team of investigators has begun work in Northern Ireland looking into over 3,000 murders committed during 30 years of the Troubles. The Historical Inquiries team says its main aim is to find answers for bereaved families, although prosecutions have not been ruled out. Our Ireland correspondent Dennis Murray has spoken to some of the relatives seeking justice.
3 young men, brothers, cut down in their youth, murdered in their family home in South Armagh 30 years ago simply because they were Catholics. Exactly the kind of unsolved case which the new inquiry team will reinvestigate. One of their surviving brothers, Eugene Reevy, believes members of the security forces were actively involved in the killings. Nonetheless, he welcomes the new investigation team.
Do I think that there will be anything come out of it, Dennis? I can't answer that question because I've been disappointed so many times, and I'm trying not to get too enthusiastic, but at the same time, I will give all the help I can to the inquiry teams, and whatever I know, I'll tell them.
The day after the Reevy murders, 10 Protestant textile workers were murdered by the IRA in revenge, the Kings Mills massacre. The mother of one of the victims, Kenneth Wharton, just wants the truth.
Well, I mean, you go from day to day and you don't know who's did it. You could be talking to the ones that have done it and you don't know. You know, like, you want to know some truth. Definitely. Like, the truth never hurts. It always comes out right in the end, doesn't it?
The new investigation team start work on their first 100 cases on Monday, starting with 1969. And they'll look at a staggering more than 3,000 murders. They say it's a daunting task, but not impossible, with the families at the heart of their work.
We will look at these cases again to see if we can, by review, develop additional lines of inquiry. Also, it's about what the family wants from it, really. That's the main message from us today.
The team says this is a unique concept in world policing, and they're out to get what all the bereaved families want: justice. There may be some cases where little or nothing can be done, but where the team can get the evidence, they'll prosecute. Dennis Murray, BBC News, with the Historical Inquiry Team.
A girl who survived being shot in the head after watching her friend, Mary-Anne Lenihan, being murdered, has told a jury how they were both led out to be killed. The 19-year-old girl, who cannot be named for legal reasons, was kidnapped along with Mary-Anne last May. 6 men are on trial at Reading Crown Court for a range of offences, including rape, murder and attempted murder. Next week, the Palestinian people will vote to choose a parliament, and for the first time, the armed Islamic movement Hamas is taking part. Hamas was founded in 1987. It's formally committed to the destruction of the State of Israel. In recent years, it's carried out more than 50 suicide attacks against Israel, killing 296 civilians. James Reynolds reports from the West Bank.
Mona Mansour is the widow of a famous Hamas gunman killed by Israel. Now she's found a way to carry on his fight. She's running for parliament for Hamas on a clear platform: pro-religion, anti-corruption, anti-Israel.
The
Israelis are afraid of us because we want our rights, she says. We want our land. In the old city of Nablus, Hamas candidates go looking for votes. Negotiate with Israel, the man wearing glasses says. Why? The candidate replies. We need to win our rights by force. For several years now, George Bush, Tony Blair and others have called for more democracy in the Middle East and among Palestinians in particular. The hope being that democracy leads to freedom, prosperity and stability. But there is a key point for them to consider. If they really want more democracy from these streets, they may just end up with a party like Hamas. The movement has opened a museum celebrating its attacks on Israel. It's keeping its weapons. How can you be a democratic party on the one hand and an armed militia on the other hand? It doesn't mix.
It mixes all over the world because each and every country has its army, and our resistance people are our army fighting for the cause of our people.
Surely it's time to give up the armed struggle and to carry on with democracy. You'll only be taken seriously in the outside world if you're a democratic party, not a militia.
I'll tell you, no country, no nation in this world could gain its freedom without carrying guns and fight against the occupiers.
Hamas campaign adverts make just this point. Is this a party that Israel can ever deal with?
If they change their agenda,
formally, they're making action to say we are cancelling those items in the agenda which talking about extermination in the state of Israel. And joining the route of the roadmap to making peace with Israel, I cannot avoid the possibility of talking to them, especially if they have been elected.
In a few days' time, Hamas will be in Parliament. The movement may be trying democratic politics, but it hasn't given up its guns. James Reynolds, BBC News, in the West Bank.
The England football coach Sven-Göran Eriksson is suing the News of the World for breach of confidence. The newspaper alleges he told a reporter posing as a rich Arab that he would resign if the team won the World Cup this summer. Adam Parsons reports.
For Sven-Göran Eriksson, it has been a turbulent few days.
Even if you win the World Cup.
His public appearances echoing to questions about his loyalty to England. Eriksson insists he is committed to leading the team to the World Cup. Others aren't so sure. Their doubts inflamed by headlines in last Sunday's News of the World. The paper had lured Eriksson to Dubai on the pretext of a fake business deal. During what he thought was a private discussion, the Swede apparently criticised some of his star players, suggested he could replace David O'Leary as manager of Aston Villa, and said he'd resign from his job if England won the World Cup. It was a classic newspaper sting, but today Eriksson has started proceedings against the paper, claiming breach of confidence.
Sven's not really got much chance of winning this case against the News of the World. First of all, their story was clearly in the public interest. And of course, there's no real confidence in iniquity if what he was trying to do was get himself a job at Aston Villa and get David O'Leary thrown out. That's a pretty iniquitous thing, and that's pretty unpleasant.
Eriksson does believe his England team can win the World Cup this summer, but the critics will point to this spat as yet another needless distraction for coach and players. Tonight, Eriksson has more reasons to feel nervous. The News of the World says it stands by its story and that it's planning further revelations about the England coach. Adam Parsons, BBC News.
Arsenal have signed the 16-year-old striker Theo Walcott from Southampton in a deal that could be worth up to £12 million. It makes Walcott the most expensive player for his age in British football. Manager Arsene Wenger says he has the potential to be as good as Wayne Rooney. Scientists with the British Antarctic Survey say they're concerned that rising sea temperatures are threatening the region's marine life. Temperatures in the Antarctic Peninsula are rising faster than anywhere else on Earth due to the effects of global warming. Our correspondent David Shukman is there and from the scientist base at Rothera sent this report.
At first, the ice seems impossible to get through. We're with a research team on an expedition monitoring the Antarctic Ocean.
Discovery and Stella off East Beach, pushing through ice.
Suddenly, we're in the clear and follow a spectacular path through the icebergs. Ice dominates everything here, but believe it or not, these waters are actually getting warmer. The scientists do a check on the sea temperature.
0.0001.
They've now got a record stretching back half a century, and the results are revealing.
Over the last 50 years, there has been a 1 degree centigrade change in the temperature of the Southern Ocean. And what we're doing here is carrying out a monitoring program to try and assess what the impact of that 1 degree centigrade change could be.
For the wildlife here, that 1 degree of warming really matters and could prove devastating. Wildlife, like this penguin, survive in the Antarctic in an incredibly delicate balance, which is why there's such concern about climate change. The slightest warming of the ocean could upset the whole food chain, mean that penguins like this don't get the food they need. There's only one way to find out exactly what's happening. Researchers have to venture into the icy waters themselves. Down below, this is what an iceberg looks like. And it's down here in the half-light that the changing climate is disrupting the ecosystem. The warming of the waters makes life harder for these Antarctic krill, the mainstay of the food chain. It also threatens a whole host of life forms, unused to any kind of change, let alone a rise in temperature.
What we're seeing now is a change that is quicker than anything since man's been on Earth.
And what we're seeing at the moment is changes are costing animals. So where they could easily do things like move about, reproduce in the oceans around here and feed, it's getting progressively more difficult for them to do that.
At the moment, these elephant seals look pretty relaxed and comfortable as they lie here, but if the warnings of the scientists who work here are right, climate change is not going to be good news. So the creatures of this distant world are under threat. Some will adapt, but the fear is that many won't. David Shrookman, BBC News in Antarctica.
We'll be back with the headlines in a few minutes. And on BBC News 24 tonight, thousands honour Ashes hero Freddie Flintoff, and he explains how it feels to be given the freedom of his hometown. But here on BBC One, it's time to join our news teams across the UK. Bye for now.
Hello, good evening from Points West. A senior councillor at Bath and North East Somerset Council is warning that the huge cost of the Bath Spa could cause financial problems for the council. The price of the troubled project has now risen to £45 million, and it's putting a strain on the council's budget. John Maguire reports.
Now, if I had £1 for every time we've shown you this building on Points West, I could probably buy it myself. Let's take a cross-section of the spa. Thank you. And fill one of the pools with water to give you an idea of the finances over the years. The original estimate was £13 million. Recently, of course, that's grown, and the figure we'd all pretty much been working on was around £37 million. But now the man in charge of council coffers says the real cost of the Bath Spa will be more like £45 million, way above the original estimate, in fact, 3.5 times more. This is a work in progress that looks a long way from being finished. Scaffolding still shrouds the open-air pool, and some of the vandalised glass panels are now protected by wooden fences and CCTV cameras. The man who's been crunching the numbers is Councillor Malcolm Hannay. Cards on the table, he's been opposed to the spa since day one, but argues the total cost is the one we should all talk about.
Figures the council has otherwise put forward you'll probably reflect just elements of the project, but they do ignore otherwise claims that have been paid on account and preparing for the potential claims process as well as interest. And I think all of those are real costs to the council and its taxpayers.
He believes the spa will put pressure on the council's budget, and costs will make up 5% of council tax bills from now on. So what else could Bath have for £45 million? A new stadium and some star signings for Bath Rugby Club, or 3 brand new secondary schools. These doors should open at Easter, and only then can the Bath Spa reverse the cash flow and start bringing money in. John Maguire, BBC Points West, Bath.
One of the 4 men charged in connection with the death of a 17-year-old from Taunton has had the charge of murder against him dropped. Lloyd Foraker was killed in September while he was walking home from a friend's party. William Tarrant, who's 19, has now been freed on bail. The case against 2 other 19-year-olds accused of murder and violent disorder is proceeding. Psychiatric assessments are being made on a 4th defendant. A pregnant woman's been robbed at knife point at a bus stop in Weston-super-Mare. The attack happened at 5:30 on Wallescott Road this evening. The victim, who's 6 months pregnant, had her purse stolen. The attacker's described as white with a local accent and wearing a black puffer jacket. A new scheme's been proposed to try to cut congestion going into Bristol. Planners want to use state-of-the-art buses on old railway tracks like the old Avon railway route. It's claimed it would be a cheaper option. Patients at Abbey Ward in Malmesbury Community Hospital have been moved to another hospital. Wiltshire Primary Care Trust wants to cut the number of beds in community hospitals. They hope that by replacing the Malmesbury inpatient beds with a new nursing home, they'll solve the problems of bed blocking. Tomorrow will be the 30th anniversary of the first commercial flight of Concorde. The trip to Bahrain, here it is, marked the start of real supersonic air travel. One Concorde that played a vital role in the fleet's history was Delta Gulf. It lay forgotten for over 20 years until it was bought for restoration. Well, we've been back with its former test flight engineer to see how the project is going.
The last time we saw Concorde Delta Gulf, it was lying in bits in a Filton hangar. As the first British production aircraft, it was used to get the certificate of airworthiness for the entire Concorde fleet. Today at Brooklands Air Museum, Concorde Delta Gulf is looking more like she should.
Yes,
Doug Newton was a test flight engineer at Fairford and worked extensively on Delta Gulf. He hasn't seen the aircraft since the 70s, so we thought it was about time he met his old friend.
Wow. Hello, baby. I'm sorry, a bit emotional.
Fancy looking inside?
I'd love to go inside. Back home again.
What do you think, Doug?
Wonderful. Concorde lives again. It's breathing. Look at it. Just look at it.
An emotional reunion. Doug flew over 40 test flights on this aircraft, and he remembers a rough ride over Casablanca with Brian Trebshaw at the controls.
And there was an almighty bang. A turbine blade tip had split off and embedded itself in one of the wing roots. The aircraft did tilt slightly, but it corrected itself, as it's supposed to do, and we turned round, landed back at Casablanca to do an engine change and carry on test flying.
Engineers at Brooklands played a huge role in the manufacture of Concorde. By this summer, visitors will be able to walk through Delta Gulf and see it in its various guises. Much time, money and enthusiasm has gone into this restoration, testament to the enduring appeal of this wonderful aircraft.
We've worked our butts off to get this aircraft up to Mach 2 and into airline service in the 1960s. It's a wonderful achievement, and this is a credit to the Brooklands Museum to get it back together again.
And Doug still hopes in his heart that one day he'll hear that famous engine roar again. Steve Nibbs, BBC Points West, Brooklands Air Museum in Surrey.
Gloucester Rugby Club has been preparing for its latest clash in the European Challenge Cup this weekend. But the venue hasn't been a rugby field, but a sinking ship. They spent the day at a simulator at HMS Raleigh near Plymouth. Their aim was to stem the flow of water inside the vessel by using their teamwork and communication skills. And now the weather, here's Richard Angwin.
Well, it should be a nice night across the region. The showers have died away and it'll be fine and starry for a good part of the night. A chilly night, temperatures down to about 3 degrees, but that breeze should ensure we don't get any real frost problems. As for tomorrow, there will be some patchy cloud at times, but it looks like it's staying dry and bright across the region. There will be a cool breeze out there. We're looking at afternoon highs of around 8 to 9 degrees Celsius.
That's all from us for now. Bye-bye.
And the main news tonight, Iraq's Shiite majority have won the largest block of seats in the country's parliamentary elections, but they've failed to win an overall majority. And 5 weeks after the vote, the Sunni Muslim minority will have a stronger voice than before. The internet search engine giant Google is taking on the US government to protect its users' privacy. And efforts are underway in the River Thames to urge a 7-ton whale back out to sea. Newsnight's getting underway over on BBC Two, but from all of us on the 10 o'clock team, good night.
Jeff Randall talks to Rupert Murdoch about business, politics, life and the universe over on BBC Radio 5 Live, 9:09 and 6:93 AM.
Good evening. Until today, London, along with many parts of the UK, had seen very little sunshine so far this year, but today and tomorrow I think will go a long way to making up that deficit. It does look beautiful for many of us tomorrow, a little on the chilly side. Make the most of that sunshine, not quite so bright on Sunday, but still largely dry. Of course, we said goodbye to the early morning rain today. We've had a peppering of showers in the north and the west, but now the cloud is melting and the temperatures are tumbling away. So very few showers left, and I think the main difference tonight with last night is how chilly it will feel first thing tomorrow morning. Temperatures on the thermometer falling to 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, but of course on the ground, particularly untreated surfaces, we could have a touch of frost and therefore some icy patches first thing tomorrow morning. And there still will be the odd rogue shower around. Take for example the northwest home counties just to the north of London, up through the West Midlands, and again I suppose the northeast of Wales towards Wrexham, Flintshire, Cheshire Gap to Cheshire, Liverpool, Merseyside, I suppose Manchester as well catching the odd shower, but it'll be the exception rather than the rule. Notice also some thicker clouds for Scotland first thing with some patchy rain, not amounting to a great deal, but on the whole drier for Scotland compared with today. Drier for Northern Ireland. It should be a beautiful start to the day as well for many parts of Wales. And the West Country and the Southwest, here we had quite a few showers actually today. It should be drier tomorrow. So a great day for dusting off the walking boots perhaps and heading up into the mountains. Yes, a chilly start, but actually with more sunshine and arguably less wind than today, probably won't feel quite so cold. And even the rain that we have across the north of Scotland will tend to scoot away into the afternoon, allowing some brighter skies perhaps to the northwest Highland region. And so all in all, not a bad day at all. Temperatures of between 7 and 9 degrees, believe it or not, are average at this time of year. However, during tomorrow evening and night, the winds will fall quite light, and actually the difference therefore will allow the fog to form quite widely actually for England and Wales. And it could be even colder than the coming night as well, more of a frost problem I think first thing on Sunday morning, which equates to freezing fog of course. Whilst across the northwest temperatures won't fall quite so low, and here's why. More cloud and some rain, which is why I said make the most of the sunshine tomorrow. Some more significant rain I think Sunday for the northwest Highlands, some snow over the hills, and eventually the thicker cloud will bring some of that rain down into the north of Northern Ireland. For England and Wales, the main difference probably some stubborn fog, and therefore it will be cold, but there'll be some good sunshine around the coast, and for most it will stay dry and fine. Could get even colder though next week. Bye bye.